Welcome to the very first challenge in our C programming challenges from Zero to Pro series. Today we are starting with the classic printing Hello World in C. This is the simplest challenge, but it introduces you to two important things you use in almost every program, which is inputs and outputs. The problem is straightforward. We need to print two lines. First line is the text hello world exactly as written, and the second line is whatever input string the user provides. Okay, so let me read the objective of the challenge so that you get an understanding of what I'm trying to say. So it says, in this challenge we will learn some basic concepts of C that will get you started with the language. You will need to use the same syntax to read input and write output in many C challenges. So this is a precursor to multiple C challenges that we will be taking. As you work through these problems, review the code steps to learn about reading from std in and writing to std out. Don't worry about the technical details. I'll explain as we move along. So as I said, the simple task for this challenge is to print the text hello world with an exclamation mark and then whatever input the user types in. So if the input is life is beautiful, the output will have to be hello world, life is beautiful. Okay, so to be able to do this in C, now we are getting to the code. To be able to do this in C, we use a function called printf. Printf, right? You can think of it as a way we talk to the console. So when you run a C program, okay, the console, which runs the executable of the file you have written, will display whatever text you type into printf. Okay, so say you type hello world into printf. When you run your program, you'll see hello world on the console. So you can think of printf as the way your program talks to the console. It brings output. Okay, and printf as a function is found within the stdio header file. Okay, header files are something I'll explain later in the course, but a brief explanation I'll give you for now is that header files contains the functions that you will need for input and output so that you don't have to create them yourselves. So in order not to create these functions yourselves, these header files provide you with these helper functions to make your work as a programmer easier. So an example of a function within the header file is printf, which prints messages on the console. Another example is scanf, which takes inputs from the user. Okay, so what we are going to be doing first of all is to print hello world, because that's the first thing we are supposed to do. So this is the syntax. That's the syntax. Okay, and this is how you comment in C. Use two forward slashes. Okay. Now with this simple line of code I've written here, it's hello world. Now one thing you must know is that when we finish printing hello world, okay, we want the next thing we print to be on a new line. So I'm going to introduce a concept known as the new line character. This is the new line character. Okay, so you are supposed to introduce the new line character, after you finish typing hello world, so that the next line you print will be on a new line. Okay, so now that we've printed hello world, the next thing we do is to print whatever the user entered. Now, I didn't talk about something. You see, within this file, the stub file that we were given, HackerRank has already handled creating a variable, okay, and taking input. So what these two lines are doing is that this creates a variable where we can store the input of the user, which is an array of characters. In other words, a string. So a text basically. And scanf is the function which takes in the input of the user. Okay, so that's what is happening. And what this whole thing means is that scanf will read everything until it encounters a new line, meaning that it will keep reading inputs till you press enter. Once you press enter, it stops reading the inputs. Okay, so that the entire sentence will be captured. So now that we understand what these two lines of code do, we can move on to printing what the user entered. And we do that simply by introducing this %s symbol. Now, %s is what you call a format specifier. Okay, and a format specifier simply tells you what data you are printing when you are using in printf. We use %s for strings. Okay, then after the %s, you bring a comma and then you specify the variable you are reading from. So in this case, we are reading from the s variable. So this is basically how it is. Let's run the code and see if it's correct. Okay, so now you will notice one thing which is good to learn as a programmer is debugging. You will notice that our output seems to be the same as the expected outputs. That's, yeah. But one thing that is different is the comma. So HackerRank wants to make sure that you do everything as exactly as they told you to do. So the main reason we are getting this wrong answer is because of the comma. So all we have to do, as you already know, is to place a comma there and we can run again. And perfect, it passes the sample test. And then we can submit and see if it passes all other test cases. And it does. So this is a very simple program, okay, that prints hello world and whatever the user entered. One important thing I would like to add is the fact that you should always bring semicolon at the end of each line of code. Okay, so stick around as we move to the next challenge in the playlist, where we'll build on this and start working with numbers. Thank you.